Coming up on 5 Minute News. Facebook rebrands as Meta to distract from scrutiny. Biden announces a reduced deal and says, "Let's get this done." And China backtracks on climate targets ahead of UN conference. It's Friday, October 29. I'm Anthony Davis. Facebook's CEO Mark Zuckerberg said his company is rebranding itself as Meta, which is seen as an effort to paper over criticism and historical negligence. Critics point out this appears to be an attempt to change the subject from the Facebook Papers, a leaked document trove so dubbed by a consortium of news organizations. Many of these documents, first described by former Facebook employee turned whistleblower Frances Haugen, have revealed how Facebook ignored or downplayed internal warnings of the negative and often harmful consequences its algorithms wreaked across the world. Facebook is the world's social media platform, and they're being accused of creating something that is harmful to people and society, said marketing consultant Laura Rice. She compared the name Meta to when BP rebranded to Beyond Petroleum to escape criticism that it harmed the environment. They can't walk away from the social network with a new corporate name and talk of a future metaverse. Zuckerberg describes the metaverse as a virtual environment you can go inside of, instead of just looking at on a screen. Essentially, it's a world of endless interconnected virtual communities, where people can meet, work, and play using virtual reality headsets, augmented reality glasses, smartphone apps, or other devices. Zuckerberg says he expects the metaverse to reach 1 billion people within the next decade. The announcement comes amid an existential crisis for Facebook. It faces heightened legislative and regulatory scrutiny in many parts of the world following revelations in the Facebook Papers. But that isn't stopping Zuckerberg, seemingly eager to move on to his next big thing, as crisis after crisis emerges at the company he created. President Joe Biden declared on Thursday he has reached an historic economic framework with Democrats in Congress on his sweeping domestic policy package, a hard-fought yet dramatically scaled-back deal announced just before he departed for overseas summits. Biden's remarks at the White House came after he traveled to Capitol Hill to make the case to House Democrats for the still robust domestic package, $1.75 trillion of social services and climate change programs that the White House believes can pass the 50-50 Senate. It will fundamentally change the lives of millions of people for the better, Biden said of the agreement, which he badly wanted before the summits to show the world American democracy still works. "Let's get this done," he said. Democratic leaders in the U.S. House of Representatives said they would not vote on the bipartisan infrastructure plan, as their leaders had suggested after progressives balked. Dozens of progressive Democrats in the House opposed a quick vote on the $1 trillion infrastructure bill until the details of the larger bill, once targeted at $3.5 trillion, were worked out. Paid family leave and efforts to lower prescription drug pricing are now gone entirely from the package, drawing outrage from some lawmakers and advocates. Still in the mix, a long list of other priorities: free pre-kindergarten for all youngsters, expanded healthcare programs including the launch of a $35 billion new hearing aid benefit for people with Medicare, and $555 billion to tackle climate change. China is offering no significant new goals for reducing climate-changing emissions ahead of the UN climate summit set to start next week in Glasgow. China, the world's top emitter of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases that cause global warming, formally submitted its goals on Thursday. The highly anticipated announcement includes targets previously established in speeches by President Xi Jinping and domestic policy documents. China says it aims to reach peak emissions of carbon dioxide, which is produced mainly through burning coal, oil and natural gas for transportation, electric power and manufacturing, before 2030, The country is aiming for carbon neutrality, no net emissions of CO2, before 2060. It's not surprising, but it is disappointing that there wasn't anything new in terms of goals, said Joanna Lewis, an expert in China, climate and energy at Georgetown University. Nations participating in the UN Climate Conference, known as the 26th Conference of Parties, or COP26, submit what are called nationally determined contributions that lay out emissions reduction plans. It is still possible that China may have additional announcements at the climate summit related to financing for renewable energy overseas, said Lewis. Sam Giel, CEO of non-profit China Dialogue and Associate Fellow at Chatham House in London, said China's pledge is consistent with everything that we've seen from Xi Jinping's previous statements. He and other experts are concerned that pledges on emissions targets and also on financial support to help reduce emissions and adapt to a changing climate, especially for developing countries, are coming in far too late, far too small. You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.